when I think of Dad and I describe him to others that never met him, I think of 6 words that always come up and are regular to use when I describe Dad. The first is recall. Dad had an amazing memory. Every January 21st, my phone would ring before 10 a.m. saying happy birthday with that big voice. He never forgot a birthday. And he had an amazing memory for places he had been. You've heard some stories shared that he's told at the McDonald's crowd, and some are probably a bit embellished over the years, but that's also sort of a Greek way, right? But Dad, when he traveled as a salesman, I would travel in the car sometimes with him, not in that job, but visiting him, and I would find little obscure places on a map, and I'd say, Dad, have you ever been to this town? And he'd say, yeah, I've been there. And he'd have some story about the town. He had an amazing recall. Sometimes it wasn't good, because he would remind you of things that you didn't want to hear about over and over. When I was very young, Pat and Dad took the kids to Gatlinburg, and we stayed at a Holiday Inn, and there was a slide by the pool, one of those yellow curving slides, and I guess my brother and sister who are older probably went down a few times. I got the courage to climb up the ladder, but I couldn't slide down. And I still see Dad at the bottom pleading with me, come down the slide, son, I'm going to catch you. How long, Pat, did that go on? It was a long time. I never went down. And Dad never let me forget that. The second word is punctual. Dad was extremely punctual. If you were expected to be at his house at a certain time, 1 minute later, it's a panic. He's wondering, he's asking Pat like she knows, where are they, where are they? And I can still see him in Highland Avenue sitting with his left arm on the couch, looking out the window. Where's Aunt Bernice? Where's Leah? Not that Leah's not punctual, but that showed respect too, because Dad was always on time, and I appreciate that. The third word is protective. Dad was properly concerned for our welfare as kids. And he showed some extra effort many times. I know that whenever we rode with him in the front seat, if he had to make a sudden stop, that arm would go over there. And, you know, I knew at 4, this arm isn't stopping me. But it was the gesture. Dad was always careful. And my mom told me last week that when Leah, the oldest, had to have a diaper change, Mom said she felt like she was getting ill often when she would change her diaper. It was like a fever. And it turns out Dad was turning the thermostat up as high as possible in preparation for a diaper change. There was another famous trip with Pat and Dad to Myrtle Beach in the 70s. And I think it must have been around the 4th of July, Pat, because Dad had somehow, maybe it was your idea to get some firecrackers. Not an M80, but those little, what do they call the cylindrical, short firecrackers. And of course, we kids were excited. We were going to see some fireworks. And Dad, he established a perimeter around himself and the firecracker. None of us were allowed to get within 6, 7 feet. And then he propped the firecracker up in the sand, and then he lit a match, and threw the match toward the fuse. I'm not making this up. Is that true? And he did that through probably a whole pack of matches. And can you even imagine the disappointment on our faces? I don't think a single firecracker went off. I do know what it sounds like when a lit match hits sand. The fourth word is humorous. And, you know, we could be here all day talking about Dad's sense of humor. He was sharply witty, often sarcastic. He was capable of filling a room with laughter. And anyone who knows him knows this. I can't begin to give examples, but the spontaneity of his humor was what I loved, because Pat, who's a wonderful photographer, one time we were all together at a reunion. You were taking Probably more pictures than you needed to. But Dad had been quiet and patient, but all of a sudden, he said, "Why don't you open a camera shop, Pat?" And he kept that sense of humor until the end. The fifth word is extroverted, which you're all gathering that now. Very gregarious. Dad was the life of any party. And whether it was celebrating a football game or dancing on a table with Tony Orlando and Dawn, true story, that was Las Vegas. He was the opposite of shy. He could strike up a conversation with anyone, and they were better for it. He definitely was happiest when he was surrounded with friends, family, food, and noise in general. Uncle George mentioned his dancing ability. Just recently I was watching a video when you all were in Yadaki at the wedding, and some of the traditional Greek dancing was going on, and I'm watching, it was getting a little boring. You know, this is not, it's not that much. And they're doing the circles, and I'm starting to fast forward, and all of a sudden a figure comes from the right. Heels up, doing this, and I said, "Patricia, that's got to be Dad." Finally, proud. And we've heard a little bit about that today. Dad was very proud of his heritage. He was very proud of his family. Always honored his mother, especially for her strength and love and endurance, and definitely his hard-working entrepreneurial father. He admired his siblings, and we all do as well, and how close they've always been. So his pride is something that we don't let him take with him. We continue that. So those 6 things are things that I wanted to say today. And a long life is also a life that sometimes has regrets. And I know that Dad had some regrets. We all have regrets from time to time. I'll share one of mine. It's about 40 years old now. But one of my regrets is I really wish I would have grown up that slide.